Hello there everybody, and welcome to Map the Dragon Railways, and welcome to this video. And of course we are continuing the month of making the Titfield Thunderbolt. And this week we are going to be making the buffet coach. So we're going to talk about that whole consist first. So it starts off in the opening scene with this buffet coach. It was hauled by 1401, and it had a towed brakevan and a cattle wagon. Now every time people run these trains, they always think the cattle wagon must be there. But from the film in general, you see it as more of a 1 week sort of thing, as it's for the market. And in other scenes, it's just the tow brake van and the buffet car being pulled by the 14XX. So, before I start talking about the buffet coach, I'm going to talk about the cattle wagon first. If you do want a cattle wagon, then I recommend like the Dapple kit that they do for them. It seems to be in a grey colour, a little bit off from the tow brake van. So if you ever go with that, paint it like that. And there will be, model wagons everywhere that you could probably pick up fairly cheap and, have as that. Now I'll go on to the tow brake van. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail as I did last episode. Basically, for 15 quid, you can buy a nice Oxford Rail towed brake van, ready to run. And yeah, they're very nice. I think I got mine for £12 when I got it, but they're about £15 as of filming. They have quite a lot of detail, which is really nice. They even have detail inside that you can only see if you shine a light through. So yeah, they're very nice, metal wheels and everything. Though, if that isn't to your budget, you can always pick up one of these fairly cheap, normally in job lots. Yeah, they're okay. Mine's got a little mark on the roof and that. And I got this at a job lot, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, though one thing to point out is these older ones are actually taller than the Oxford ones. So when you actually pair it up with the, say like the buffet coach that I'm going to get into in a second, this one raises above it, whereas this one's nice and level with it, and it looks rather nice. So now onto the coach itself. So when we look online in that, I start looking at ready-to-run models that I can make into that. And the coach in the film was actually a bogie coach, and but it was like, quite short. And the closest I could find was not a bogie coach, and it is actually the Bachmann Henrietta four-wheel coach, because it's got the verandas on each end and all that, and it looks quite nice and very, very similar. So I recommend getting one of them, and they are rather nice, Another one I've heard of is the old Triangle Wild West range. They had something like that, with the verandas and all that. But if you want something more modern than that, then you're probably looking at the Bachmann one. And sadly, this is quite expensive, actually. It's about £26.95, something around that, including shipping. So yeah, this is the most expensive one at the moment as filming. But yeah, and this is what it looks like when it's done. And yeah, it looks rather nice. My paint job isn't to a great standard. The white paint I have is really bad, so if you see it going through and that, I challenged myself and rushed it to do it in a day. So if you just put some time and care into it, then you can make a really, really nice model of it. But if I'm honest, down on the layout, it looks rather nice. So without further ado, let's go through how I made it into this, the nicer buffet coach. So, to begin with, we need to disassemble the Bachmann Henrietta coach. So there's 2 holes there, and in that are screws. So as you can see here, you just need to unscrew them. Those go right through, even straight through to the glazing inside, and through a weight. So yeah, it enables you to take the main body off. Next up, we need to remove the verandas themselves. Now, I used a screwdriver and very carefully lifted them out of place and pulled it out the top. Now, if you do this yourself, be very, very careful. They are bulletproof, but it is difficult. And with a lot of force, you can see I took the body off, and it does take quite a lot of force. So just play very careful with this. And there's the main part disassembled. Then on to more thorough disassembly, removing the buffers using some pliers. A good trick is to wiggle them, as you can see here, and they just pop out with a bit of force. Then I unscrewed the couplings at each end. Be careful because the screws are very small, so you can lose them very easily. So I'd put them in a tub or a bag or something. And as soon as you undo the screw, the couplings just pop out straight away with no hassle or force needed whatsoever. Then I went to paint the buffer beam black. Sadly, the only gloss black I had was in an aerosol spray can, so I sprayed it in the cap and painted on with a brush to be more precise. The problem with this though is that it ruined the brush, so only do this with a brush you can waste if you do it this way, or just spray paint it yourself. I've done this because in the film the buffer beam is actually black on the buffet coach, so it adds some more realism to it. But yeah, I put on some latex gloves as well, just to help protect my hands from getting covered in paint. Next up, you've guessed it, more disassembly. I put the coach in some warm water. I thought I'd clean off any grease, but at the same time let it soften the glue, and with a screwdriver prised out the window glazing. Then I decided to mask off the roof. I quite liked how the roof was, as it was, nice grey and everything, so I decided that I wanted to keep it as it is. So I masked over it with some masking tape, just so I don't wreck the roof if I, make a mistake when painting the body and go overboard. Now I'm on to actually painting the model. And this is quite weird to say, but this is actually fence paint I'm using. So basically I was painting someone's fence, and their fence actually turned out to be the bang-on same colour as what I can see in the photos from the Titfield Thunderbolt. So I went on Google and, first to find the right colour, matched it with this fence paint, and I used it because it cut down cost. In fact, I only actually had to pay for the coach in this project, as I had the paints for everything else. But yeah, as you can see here, I'm just applying a nice coat on. And I do a few thin coats just to build up a nice layer. In the end, I was actually quite surprised with how this paint turned out. And how I didn't actually manage to get any brush marks on it. So this fence paint, as silly as it sounds, is actually really good stuff for painting our models. Now, as I said in the Dan's House conversion, spray cans are normally more ideal, at least for me personally, because of the brush marks. But like I say, this paint seemed to be really good for this model, and I didn't end up leaving any brush marks whatsoever, which was rather good. So I kept doing a thin coat, leaving it to dry, and then doing a thin coat until the whole coach was done. I even actually painted the inside of the coach, just so that when you're looking through the window you won't see the old original orangey brown colour from the Henrietta, and you'll see the nice blue from the Titfield Thunderbolt buffet coach. Then, after doing all this coach, the buffer beams had dried off, and basically it was just a case of gluing in the buffers again. This was using poly cement, and I'd be careful. I would recommend cleaning out the holes after you've painted, due to paint falling in there and, making the hole smaller for you to fit in the buffers. And I even had that in a case where I couldn't get a buffer in, so I had to spend some time cleaning it out. So yeah, just be cautious. As well as refitting the buffers, I'd done the couplings as well, so all of it was ready for the full painted body to go on. Whilst the coach body was still drying, I decided to paint the handrails around the verandas. I used some acrylic paint that I watered down. This was cheap B&M stuff, but it wasn't very good, and it was very hopeless in the end. But due to rushing, I didn't want to have to wait more time to get some better paint, so I just tried it out anyway. I only done one coat, so I could have in the end have done more, but I decided not to. And basically, the paint was just hopeless, really. But yeah, I think a lot of it was actually thanks to the gloss black underneath and painting white on top. But hey-ho, it looks okay now when it's down on the layout, and it's not too noticeable unless you're looking up close. And here's the coach body after it was fully painted. And yeah, I'm very pleased with it, no brush marks. I didn't go to heavy detail on the inside, so it isn't to a high standard on the inside, but it's one of those things that you'd only capture the original orange anyway at a glance, so it's nothing too bad. And as you can see here, I was just removing the masking tape to see how good or bad of a job I've done. And I've done fairly well. I didn't notice any bleed through, which was rather nice. Now I'm on to the secondary colour, and I got some Humbrol Buffer Beam Red, darkened it down with some matte black, and it was to match the secondary colour on the coach. Now this was actually on the top, just below the windows, and in the top lights as well. I done the top lights, and I done actually halfway down the coach instead of right up below the windows, as I feel it looked better on this coach. As this is not an exact replica of the coach in real life, this is just a Thomas model, It isn't bang on the same as the coach in the film. So, you know, I had to make do. And do you know what? It looks rather nice, actually, with it in the centre. Now, I'd recommend using some masking tape, but I decided to do it freehand and get very stressed about it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it looked rather nice, not too shabby, bit rough in places, but, you know, rather nice. Then I went on to fitting back the old window glazing, and this was very, very stressful, if I admit. Bachmann, whoever decided to have the glazing in the certain way it was absolutely stupid. I know it wasn't designed to be falling apart and it's designed to be really robust, but it's such a tight fit. I really, really struggled to get it in place. In the end, I'd recommend, if you do this yourself, fitting the side first and then going on with the ends. And even then, it's quite a tight fit, but you get there in the end. If this problem actually happens to you, where you really struggle to get in place and you decide to give up, you can just use some acetate, which is normally like the window off food packaging and all that, and just glue it in place and it will do the same job. Now we are actually getting to a point where the coach looks like a coach. I decided to glue down the verandas to make things easier, but yeah, as you can see, I snapped the body back on and basically done the reverse of everything I'd done at the start of the video when I was disassembling it. Now, if you wanted, you could have added an interior yourself, making the standard seats as well as the bar and with the barrel that Mr. Valentine sat by when he was drinking his spirits. But to cut down cost in general, I decided not to, as well as the fact that you will not see it when it's running around, only making out possibly the barrel. Finally, all that needs doing is the final body screws being put through the bottom. Now, to be honest, if you lose these screws, it's perfectly fine, as the body holds on very, very tightly, as you might have seen earlier in the video, where it was really tight and really difficult and took a lot of force to take off. And yeah, it's just really solid. And that's it, your coach is done. So here you go, we're just admiring it. And yes, I'm very pleased with this. And here she is, looking quite splendid, if I say so myself. And yeah, I can see why you might want a cattle wagon on the end, just to expand the train a bit. I don't have a 14XX at the moment. As you can see, Bluebell's just taking over at the moment, filling in the spot. And I'm quite annoyed at how much this actually suits the Roger Bay. The biggest trains on average is normally 3 coaches. Of course, I sometimes pull longer, but 3 coaches looks about right on here. But this little coach and a brake van and a little tank engine just suits the railway so much with the smaller platforms and that. It just looks really nice trundling at slow speeds. And one of my favourite sights, if I just reverse it, is with this buffet coach. It's just sat on the second platform at Nelsonsborough on the inner line, as you can see here. And it just reminds me of the scene when 1401 arrives at Mallingford station and drops off the passengers from Titfield. And yeah, it just reminds me of that scene, and it looks really nice. So I'm very happy with it. Just bring the train forward to you. So yeah, that's it for this conversion. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, give it a like. Comment down below, will you do this, or do you like the idea, or will you potentially do it in the future? Share this video with your friends and people who you know might want to do something like this. And definitely, please do consider subscribing for more things like this. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio for now.